Hi, it's a pleasure to be here and to discuss today's topic with you all. There was some technical glitch, but then we are all back in place. All right, so let's talk about the client's perspective, which is very important. As a designer, we've always been talking about how. how client behaves, but at the same time client also has certain observations. He talks about certain things which are important, and we as an architect, we as a designer kind of tend to ignore, because we kind of keep thinking the way we tend to think from the other side of the table. So this is an interesting topic. I thought we'll discuss with all of you, and we would also like to bring in certain points which I think are very important, considering across the table. So, the first thing that I would like to talk to you about is client's expectation. Now, when I say client's expectation, it basically means that how well traveled is your client. Uh, a person who has a better exposure always tends to come up with a lot of ideas, and then he can talk about various things which he or she can incorporate in terms of the design. Now, at the same time, I feel that an architect also needs to educate the client, because I've observed a lot of times client do visualize things which are aesthetically very nice, but at the same time there is a functional aspect to it which needs to be given a lot of importance. And considering aesthetics part on top, we tend to ignore um, some functionality out of it. Now, I believe that function, aesthetics, and the um, requirement of the client, mixing of these three is very, very important. So when you look at it with respect to the when you look at it with respect to the client, all three things become very important. So I'll tell you, when a client comes to an architect, he comes with certain expectation. He comes with certain feedback in his mind. Nowadays, they generally kind of take some reference or the other, which is very important. From the client's perspective as well as from the architect's perspective, it is also important to understand that the exposure of the client is very important. Now, when I say exposure, it basically means that we are talking of somebody who's well traveled, somebody who has good experience, somebody who's been to this industry for some time, and there is a person who's totally a fresh who comes to you, and he's really depending on you, he's relying on you, and he comes with a lot of trust to you. So when that happens, you need to educate the client, because the client would come up with terms like, अच्छा घर बनाना है, बहुत अच्छी जगह बनानी है, कम जगह में आप ज्यादा से ज्यादा क्या दे सकते हो, and things like this, which are very typical of it. And I believe an architect or a designer is somebody who comes with an experience which has to enrich this, and it goes without saying. Very important factor is this, that are you really helping them out? Are you really looking up to certain expectation where you're able to do justice to the client, or you are intending to do a typical kind of a thing? Now, they come with a dream in their heart and the dream in the mind, and the lady would say that I want this, and the man would say I want this, the child would say that I want this. If family, parents would say, or grandparents would say, we need something else. Now it is our duty to understand and to amalgamate and to sink in the whole culture in which these guys are living, and to give them the best solution to it, which becomes very challenging sometimes. but somehow we have to work this out. Then they would come with terminologies like, um, out of the box. So, I was going through a one reel sometime back, and I, he said something very interesting. He said, when somebody puts this question to you, you must ask, what is it that is inside the box? Do you even know that? I mean, that's very, very correct. Then, when the client comes up with certain strategy, in terms of, he would go to various designers, and then, he would take rates from all of them, and then he would also like to check on terms of in terms of your profile, your feedback in terms of the completed projects, and he would be all over. And he would then, kind of try to develop certain level of faith in you that he can hand over the project, because, when you talk of a project, um, you generally don't intend to um, finish a project which is less than few lakhs, and it goes into crores as well. So when somebody is putting that kind of a stake onto you, I very strongly feel that, it's important for you as well as to for the client to have a good common trust between the two, because that's kind of a bridge that needs to join in terms of togetherness, which will eventually help you to complete the project very successfully. So we have a question: how important is Vastu for you? Uh, I think Vastu is very much in trend nowadays. So it's not whether it's important for me as a designer or not, but I think it's very, very important for the client. And everybody talks about Vastu, and there are certain typical traits that, the entrance has to be from the northeast, and the kitchen has to be in the southeast as an Agni Kone, and so on. But, at the same time, I met a very learned guy, and I kind of agree to his certain opinions on it. That he says that Vastu is basically based on your kundalini. So and the house is all about energy flows. Good energy, good vibe coming in, and all negativity has to go out. But this guy says that everything falls onto your kundli. Let's say किसी का चंद्रमा बहुत strong है, and you design a house in a typical way where the energy of sun is further increased in the house. So I think it has to be very well studied. So I am not of a very strong opinion whether that Vastu has a very, very fixed direction. I think it varies from person to person. It varies from your stars. It depends on your stars. So somebody has to really study that thoroughly, and then they have to put this up, whether your Vastu thing is working properly or not working properly for you. So yeah, but on a thumb rule, yes, if you follow the Vastu, it's all about how well your house is with proper light and ventilation. So I believe if you have a good light, good ventilation, good energy, it's neat and clean. It gives you a lot of a good vibe and energy into the house itself. So another thing that I've been talking about is the data sharing. Yes, this is a very important aspect. So when you go to a designer, the client would say, you give us certain ideas, and the architect always says or talks about what kind of house or design or farmhouse or a hospitality project you're looking at. So he would say, we need something out of the box again, and little apprehensive in sharing the ideas. Somehow I feel that the time lag that comes in to place where I'm trying and experimenting and showing you different kind of designs. uh, there's a lot of time that goes into it, because I'm going to make one design and the client says not this, not that, because he has something in his mind which he's not ready to share. I don't know, why do you do it experimentally? I think the right approach would be that if you tell the designer that this is the kind of thing that you are looking at, then it is the designer's wisdom that talks about, well, you would say that this is not the right thing, this is not the this is where you can edit, this is how you can kind of put things together and finally fine tune things where you have inspiration of the client as well, and you have your design and functional aspects as well, both of them coming in together. But I think it's very important for the client to share these designs, share these ideas with the designer. Only then he'll be able to understand things from you properly and able to give you things well in time, and things which are close to your ideas. Otherwise, things can go haywire, and you will end up losing a lot of time. So don't hesitate in sharing a lot of references, a lot of images, a lot of ideas, a lot of dialogues with your designer, so that your output comes in a stipulated time. Your design comes close to your idea, and then you spend more time in refining it, in editing it, rather than taking a lot of time just to come down to your conclusion. I think that's where there is a lot of gap. Trust your designers, give them very, very detailed input. You will end up saving a lot of time. All right, so we have a question. Sir, how do you streamline client feedback into actionable design revisions without compromising design? Okay, so I think the question is that we are going under. Okay, so there is again, that I was talking about. There are dreams of the client. They could be very flashy, they could be bold, they could be strong. Uh, However, and a designer is supposed to bring them in terms of reality. You have to not think in your mind. You have to think of a building which is actually going to stand on the ground. It is going to be habitable. There are people who are going to stay in it. There are people who are going to be living into it. This is very important because you have to tell them what is feasible, what is not feasible. So when I say feasible, I mean to say that you need to know your budget, you need to know the limitations of the material, you need to know the limitations of your labor, contractor, and the technology which is available. So if you say that I want X thing, everything is possible, provided are you really willing to shell that much out? If yes, then probably it can be. But also remember that the trends are changing very fast. AI is taking over things very fast. So what you see today and you do the latest doesn't work for more than 10 years. You feel like this is a little outdated. You need to uh, redo things, and kind of make them all over again. So when you do that, in terms of when you're putting things right for the client, it sustains for a longer time, because functionality, because in terms of the function, it becomes very correct. And so you need to kind of work it out that way, and that's how things do get a little better in terms of the reality. This is a very interesting question. This says that what is the importance of role of vendors in the project? I think vendors play a very important role. uh, I think you can't do a wonderful project without vendors, and I would really give a lot of credits to the vendor. And in the project, it becomes very important for us to select the right vendor, because the people who come with a lot of flashy commitments, but when you reach on the ground, it becomes difficult for you to get things executed, because if things are not getting properly supplied from the vendors, if it is not up to the mark, if the finishing is not good, if the delivery is not good, there is change in the the budget that we had thought, and the kind of things that you're delivering in terms of by editing the cost to the product, it becomes uh, it becomes very difficult then to kind of justify how you will be able to complete things well in time. So it's important to have very good vendors around you. Only then you'll be able to do things practically. uh, all right, so we have another question. So we are live on Facebook, we are live on YouTube, and we are live on Instagram parallelly on all the three platforms. So wherever you're comfortable, you can log in. Now we have another question on Instagram, which says uh, How do you select materials? I think that's another very important task. Selection of material is very contextual. Contextual in terms of the site, contextual in terms of the climate, contextual in terms of the psychology of the client. Uh, First two are very important because that is something which gives you a longevity to the project. It also helps in increasing the uh, aesthetic sense of the project, and it looks contextual. So what I mean to say is that right in the center of the Rajasthan desert, if I make a glass building which heat inside and makes the temperature of the building furthermore, which makes the whole thing unbearable for the people who are inside, becomes very very difficult. So material selection is very important. However, you'll have to convince the client in terms of the properties of the material, how material is behaving in a particular climate, how material is justified in a climate. So when you talk of all these parameters and educate your client, I think clients are wise enough, and the people who are well educated definitely involve the um, of understanding the context, which I think justifies the project with respect to the climate, with respect to the um, budget, with respect to the context which is around that building. So I think that's how the selection of material should be. Give me a second. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. We are back. All right. We have a question. Contractors keep giving us a lot of ideas which make us confused whether we go with the architect's design or with the. All right. So this is important and this is interesting. Contractors have their own way of thinking, and they are the people who are on ground. They are the people who have a lot of knowledge of the materials, in terms of how is it behaving, uh, how is it reacting to um, the the context and the climate and all the things which are around. Now, when they give you an idea, there are two parts to it. One is they look at it very functional. Second is, sometimes they want to moderate on the budget as well. So I think, if you have an architect who's well experienced and is seasoned, he will definitely give you insight which is very practical. So even if a contractor is giving you some suggestions, you can bring those suggestions to your architect, because they're the people, as I said, on the ground. They can definitely give you some ideas which could be better. And even in my practice, I think I have really accepted these ideas a lot of times, where we feel that by doing these little minute details here and there would really make a difference and make the whole project better. So I think we have incorporated those, and I think there's no harm in taking ideas which and incorporating which are much better, uh, on the ground level for the project. So I don't mind and I don't hesitate in picking up such ideas. I think in fact um, it enhances the project at the end of the day. Another a point from here I would also like to talk about. um, there's always a difference in the thinking of an architect and a designer, sorry, and a contractor. And so there's a three major stakeholders when you do a project. You have an architect, you have a contractor, and you have the client. All three of them are very important, but at the same time, when you're talking of a good project, I would say the vision of architect and the client is more important, and the contractor is supposed to execute that vision. Very important, and with very with a good craftsmanship on the side. Only then these two ideas of the architect and the client materializes on the side, and something good and something fruitful comes out of the project. Now we again have a question which says, what are the elements to highlight during a client presentation to get quicker approvals? Oh, all right. So I think, initially, as I was talking about, that the client is supposed to share a lot of ideas with the with the architect, where they need to very clearly, with an open heart, they need to tell this to the designer, that what is it that they want. So I'll just give you an example. When we do a residence, we talk about their social aspects, by which I basically mean that, um, um, I would like to know whether these guys have a lot of party, they're more reserved people, is it a joint family, how old are their kids, when you talk of kids, is it a male, both females, what's the kind of pattern they live into, in terms of, do they still have chokis and eat food on the ground, or they all have it together on the dining table, do they kind of you know do their ceremonies inside the house, in terms of, do they have a lot of puja and part which is happening very regularly, and if it is, does pandit come outside and sit there for like 3 4 5 6 hours and do some part, or they do certain things in which they keep inviting 20 30 people all the time and do that. So, unless you understand their living style, you cannot really do a good design, and it'll keep on going under revision. So when you ask me that, um, the kind of elements that have to be highlighted, so elements have to be directly proportional to the lifestyle of the people who are going to live into the house, which will vary from a person to person, and a family to family, rather, I would like to put it up that way. uh, then you have, what is the methodology of adopting new material in the project? I think adopting new materials is very, very important, and we must keep experimenting these materials. However, you need to have a lot of knowledge of these materials first before you really recommend, because it is somebody's hard-earned money that is going to go into the project. Um, so when you do that, I think you'll have to justify that somewhere or the other. Um, and Once you are convinced, when you are satisfied, you've seen all the specifications, and then you assure the guarantee, in terms of I mean you assure some warranty to the product, and they're a good salesman and a good company which is backing it up. I think you can do that, or maybe you can ask some pilot, or a dummy thing to be done on the site, and you can see it for some time, and then you can uh, take it up from there. So we have Mr. Naresh. He's saying, hi, Mr. Naresh, how are you? We have another question. Should we go with an architecture consultancy firm, or the firm which will do all kind of aspects of consultancy, such as PMC, structure consultancy, MEP? So you're trying to say that if you want to give this to somebody who's doing a turnkey project, well, I am not very strongly in favor of a turnkey project. I'll tell you why, but it has got both the aspects. People who are really too much busy with their work, in terms of their business offices, whatever, and they really don't give much attention, or they can't spare a lot of time to the project, then in that case, they kind of take up a turnkey project, where they give everything to one person. It could be a designer, it could be a contractor, it could be anybody. But then I feel that, if you have a different people with different expertise, so an architect has its own expertise, a contractor has its own expertise, MEP guy has its own expertise, PMC guy has its own expertise. Now when everything falls into one umbrella, I don't know, maybe to a certain scale of a project it is fine, but then beyond that, I think it becomes very challenging in terms of managing all these things together, and then you need a certain amount of team, bigger office setup. Not that it is not possible, but it's challenging, because you are trying to bring a lot of specialties together, and then you're also committing to give a certain deadline, where you have everything, all the strings in your hand. So if your time is running out, you can change the design. If the design is not getting implemented properly by the labor, again you can change the design. If things are not happening on the time, so there are a lot of things that goes into one hand to play around with. But I think um, there are positives and negatives of it. But then I feel that after beyond a certain budget, turnkey projects don't work. Even the client would want a specialized architect, specialized contractor with having a good budget capacity, a specialized team for everything. So I think it's quite cumbersome to really talk in terms of one single person handling everything. And then yeah, and then how many projects of that scale will he be able to handle at a time. So I think there are certain challenges when you get into that mode, but not that it is not possible. All right, so we have another question. What are the key elements highlighted during a client? Okay, we've taken this. What is your methodology of adopting new? We've done this. Keep it better, or client should have separate. All right, I think we've taken all these questions here. So yeah, I think it's been great, and it's been lovely. So I have two, three more points. One is that from the client's perspective, there are three kind of land sizes or plot sizes that we're going to talk about. One is which is less than 150 square yards, to which we call it like small. Then moderate is somewhere around 600 square yards, and the big ones are beyond 600 square yards. When these clients come to a designer, I've generally seen people who have a smaller plot, they tend to encroach things everywhere. They want to cover the back setback. They want to extend their house to further on the front side towards the north. On both the sides, you have lanes which are, the walls which are, back to back, packed up with neighbor on one side, another neighbor with one side. So the only openings that I have is on the front and back, and they keep on pushing to, kind of encroach this further and further. And I've always been into dialogue with them that it's the place where you're going to live. It's the dialogue where you are going to spend a lot of time of your life. So you need to have good light, good ventilation, good air circulation, good energy flow in the house, good open spaces where you can spend some time. You need to have open areas where you can dry the clothes, you can sit out and have a cup of tea or coffee and enjoy that small space. Even in these smaller spaces, you see wonderful designs coming out, but that is only possible when you give the freedom to the designer that there are going to be certain level of setbacks which are going to be left in the front as well as on the back side. Do not cover the things because it becomes claustrophobic. So imagine a city, a street where you are also encouraging and encroaching on the front side, and these smaller plots are generally on a 20 feet, 30 feet, 40 feet road, and the house which is opposite to you is also encroaching a little. So imagine the kind of space that is left in between. I mean, for a good quality of life, you need to have more space to breathe. You need to have more space to have your own privacy. Imagine a balcony which is coming out right till the boundary wall, and similarly the house which is opposite to you, that balcony is also coming out right till the wall. And imagine you, when you sit, you hear them and they hear you. Now what is the fun and where is the quality of life? So it's important where you understand that even in smaller plots you get a lot of privacy. Do not encroach, do not spread out, do not spoil the quality of life. You're going to live in the house for your entire life, so have good decent time for yourself and your space for yourself and for your family. When it comes to 600 square yards, yes, people are a little open, and been able to do good work in these plot sizes as well. And when you go beyond 600 square yards, the expectations are some other way around, that they're going to make some, a farmhouse there. And again, it becomes very challenging because, every space they kind of churn out, and, they want to do you use with some or the other aspect, which again further becomes challenging because, you have to somewhere rationalize yourself, and you will also have to kind of, make spaces more justifiable for the activity that you are plugging into it. Very quickly, I'll kind of also consider two aspects where clients are again and again kind of asking questions, and they're right at their own place. They ask, how many times will you supervise the project? To which I always say these are two different aspects. One is your design, the other one is your supervision. Do not mix both of them. So first of all, client needs to be very clear with this aspect, that whether they need site supervision or they don't need a site supervision. If they need, then you should talk about the total number of site visits, the total time that is going to be spent on the site, and what is the scope on the site visit. This has to be clear between the architect and the client, because clients think with the kind of mindset that they come, that if there is a supervision, the architect is going to see everything, in terms of the material specification, in terms of the scales, in terms of the profession, in terms of the workmanship, the BOQs and everything. And then there's a dialogue between the client, because they're not client and the designer, because they were not clear on day one as to what is the scope of work when they go to the site. So it's important for you to be clear. So I'm not saying you don't have to do this, you don't have to check the quality, you don't have to do this or that. You may do everything, but then that has to be clear on day one, on the site, on the piece of paper, when you finalize that this person is going to be your designer. That's very, very important. One second, there's some technical thing. I'll just check it up and get back to you. All right. Okay. So thank you, Manjuji, for joining. Manuji for joining. Yeah. Another aspect is that yes, there is a. Okay. So we'll take a question first. Interesting question. Should we have a sealed windows or projection on top of the windows? With the trend which is going on, the people who are not even willing to open the windows, imagine, and they want a sealed thing. So today, if you look at any good hotel, it's just a plain facade, nice window, which does not allow any, ventilation in the building. Now imagine, people are asking for that. They're also asking for, double glazed glass, which does not allow the heat and sound to come in. All right, we agree on to this fact that you have a lot of traffic. There's a lot of sound, pollution nowadays. Sorry, noise pollution nowadays. There's a lot of heat which is outside. In winters, it becomes too cold. You need all this, but I think when you sit with your designer, you'll come up with a lot of solutions to this. There are people who would give you excellent solutions. Where I mean, we have done in our projects, where we have incorporated. Noise pollution. We've reduced the scale of noise pollution. We've reduced the thermal. We have increased the thermal insulation. Sound insulation has been done very nicely. Still, you can open the windows. Still, you can go out in the balconies. Still, you can enjoy the spaces as per your taste and the brief that you had given the initial level. I think it's been a it's all about how I mean, it's all about how seasoned your designer is. There are n number of solutions, and you can easily avail them. They're available in the market. We have another question. Our house did not turn out the way 3D was shown. How do you? Okay, so clients come up with a lot of expectation, and the designers show them a lot of 3Ds, and they get impressed with those 3Ds. Now, I always have a very strong observation that how can any designer, when I say designer, it could be an interior designer, it could be an architect, it could be any other designer who's involved with the project. How can you do a 3D without doing services? Because I see a beautiful elevation done, and then which is there in the 3D, and gradually we realize कि उसी 3D पे उसी मकान पे थोड़े टाइम बाद चार आउटडोर AC की units लग गई. Now, when that happens, it spoils the whole, the entire interest in the elevation that has been so thoughtfully designed, and architect has given so much of time into it, but it goes for a toss, because services have not been worked out. Maybe some vertical pipe is coming, the AC units are being handed out, electric ka koi tar wahan pe aa jayega, and the whole thing becomes so messy that you realize that that's not how you're thought. Also, there are clients who do not believe in doing a portfolio thing कि आप सारे काम सारी ड्राइंग्स प्रोजेक्ट शुरू होने से पहले कराइए. आप अगर बीच बीच में ये करते रहेंगे कि आज ये कर दीजिए, कल हमने ये सोचा, शाम को हमने घर में डिस्कशन किया तो अब हम ये करना चाहते हैं. आर्किटेक्ट एक फिलॉसफी से काम कर रहा है, डिजाइनर एक एक माइंडसेट से काम कर रहा है. आज उसने बहुत कुछ सोचा और शाम को आपने बोल दिया कुछ और कर लो, 2 दिन बाद आपने बोला कुछ और कर लो, then how is he going to perform? Because हर चीज एक दूसरे से जुड़ी हुई है. So when you have all these things together, how will you do something which is which is going to get changed every day? You just cannot perform that way. So आप पहले तो क्लाइंट का माइंडसेट बिल्कुल क्लियर होना पड़ेगा दैट आप अगर रोज रोज चेंज कराओगे तो प्रोजेक्ट आपका खराब हो रहा है. It's another project for your designer. He'll get more focused on people who are very clear with the thought of line. और ये कोई अचीवमेंट वाली बात नहीं है कि रोज आपके माइंड में कोई थॉट आ रहा है और आप रोज आके आर्किटेक्ट और डिजाइनर को बोलते हो कि इसको चेंज कर दो और उसको चेंज कर दो. इट डजंट वर्क लाइक दैट. You have to be first very clear as to what is it that you're looking for. You have to be very clear as to how do you want the project to be. और फिर वो आप डिजाइन देने के बाद उसको बार बार चेंज मत करिए. There can be minor additions and alterations in here and there, but it can't just so happen that on a very regular basis there is changing that is happening all over. Then it is challenging. All right, sorry. So you have another question. What are your consultancy charges? It depends on the kind of project you have. It depends on the kind of detailing you have, where the project is, what is the scale of the project, how much do you want to spend on it. And it's a very subjective question actually. So unless you sit across the table, it's very difficult. So बहुत सारी बार हमारे पास कॉल आता है जिसपे क्लाइंट हमसे सीधा ये सवाल पूछता है, what are your consultancy charges? So आप उसको क्या आंसर दो. आपको ये नहीं पता कितने कमरों का मकान बनाना है, क्या हाइट है, क्या प्लॉट साइज है, क्या सेटबैक है, आप कितना इन्वेस्ट करना चाहते हो, आप एलिवेशन में पत्थर लगाना चाहते हो, आप सिंपल पेंट करोगे, किस तरह के ग्लास लगा रहे हो, किस तरह के विंडोज लगा रहे हो ना, ग्लेज ग्लासेस, हीट रिफ्लेक्टिंग ग्लासेस, क्या है. बट व्हाट दे वांट इज पहले कॉल पे व्हाट दे वांट इज आपकी कंसल्टेंसी क्या है. नाउ आई हैव नो answer to such a question, but this is how they tune themselves in terms of पहले प्राइस आएगी तब हम डिजाइनर के पास जाएंगे. नो, दैट्स नॉट द राइट वे. डिजाइन आई मीन हम जब क्लाइंट पर्सपेक्टिव की बात कर रहे हैं तो आपको पहले ये देखना है कि उस डिजाइनर का कितना एक्सपीरियंस है, कितना वो सीजन है, उसने क्या क्या काम कर रखे हैं, किन किन लोगों के काम कर रखे हैं. एंड देन द मोस्ट इम्पोर्टेंट इज कितना उनका सिस्टम अच्छा है, किस लेवल पे वो आपको चीजें डिलीवर कर पा रहे हैं, टाइमलाइन पे डिलीवरी दे पा रहे हैं कि नहीं दे पा रहे हैं, ऑफिस सेटअप कैसा है. Based on that, once you're satisfied with all these things, then you must go to them for a project, not otherwise. और फिर आर्किटेक्ट या डिजाइनर भी आपको देख रहा है whether he wants to do your project or not. ये केवल आपका ही नहीं है कि आप आर्किटेक्ट या डिजाइनर को देख रहे हो, डिजाइनर भी आपको देख रहा है कि वो आपका काम करना चाहता है कि नहीं करना चाहता, आप कितने एक्सपीरियंस्ड हो, आप कितने सीजन हो, आप कंसल्टेंसी टाइम पे देने वाले हो कि नहीं देने वाले हो, आप उससे एक स्टिपुलेटेड टाइम में क्या क्या आउटपुट चाह रहे हो. सो ये सभी चीजों का एक nowadays you call it's like a package where both of you are evaluating each other and then you come to a final decision or conclusion to whether to take up the project or whether not to take up the project. अगर आप डिजाइनर को मना कर रहे हो बहुत अच्छा है, बिकॉज आपने रियलाइज कर लिया कि आपकी इसके साथ वेवलेंथ नहीं बनेगी. और अगर डिजाइनर भी मना कर रहा है तो प्लीज एक्सेप्ट इट, बिकॉज ही आल्सो रियलाइजेस कि उसकी आपके साथ वेवलेंथ नहीं बनेगी. सो बोथ द थिंग्स आर इक्वली इंपॉर्टेंट. शुरू में हो जाए बेटर है, लेटर ऑन इट बिकम्स लिटिल फसी इन द प्रोजेक्ट. This is an interesting question. In your experience, what is the most surprising idea that worked beautifully on small plots? I think there are masons and workers who've been continuously working on smaller projects, and their understanding is very important. I tell you, and they're very seasoned on this. Even when they do the staircase, they have an ability to work on suit by suit on the project and they would come up with a wonderful ideas, So we were, okay, we have a question. How to deal with post construction damages in a house, such as foundation damages, structural damages, and other minor damages? I think it's a very, very simple answer to this is that have a good structure consultant. This is not something that a designer can really comment upon, but it is the structure consultant who's supposed to give you an answer for all these questions, and I think he's the right guy to take over. All right, guys. So I think I would like to conclude today's session here. We are again coming live tomorrow at 6 p.m. I hope you have questions ready with you, and we look forward tomorrow at 6 p.m. Thank you very much, and it's been a great pleasure for me to address you all. And it was really nice to see so many people live, and you've put up your questions. Thank you once again. We look forward to meet you tomorrow. Take care and bye. Have a nice day.